The massive chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent. The air felt thick with tension. 600 representatives from across the galaxy stared at the humans standing at the center podium. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. William Pearson took a deep breath. The Earth ambassador was a tall man with gray at his temples and calm blue eyes. Those eyes now scanned the room, meeting the gazes of aliens with tentacles, scales, feathers, and forms that defied human description. "I will repeat our statement," William said, his voice steady. "As of today, Earth formally declares war against the Dreth Empire." A wave of whispers spread through the chamber. Some aliens clicked their mandibles. Others flashed colors across their skin in shock. The Dreth representative, a 7-foot reptilian with obsidian scales, hissed loudly. The council leader, an ancient being known as Sorax, raised all 4 of his arms for quiet. His silver skin reflected the soft blue lights of the chamber. "Ambassador Pearson," Sorax said, "no species has declared war in over 300 years. This council exists to prevent such actions." William nodded. "We understand. We do not take this step lightly." "You have been part of this council for merely 18 years, said the representative from Balin 4, her feathers ruffling. "Your species has barely mastered faster than light travel. The Dreth Empire has existed for millennia." "The Dreth attacked our colony on Proxima Centauri," William replied. "They killed 8,000 civilians. Children, families." The Dreth representative stood. His name was Grathvek, and his black scales gleamed under the lights. "Proxima Centauri is contested space," he snarled. "We warned your people to leave. It was registered with this council as a human territory 3 years ago," William said. He turned to his assistant, Susan Mitchell, a woman with short brown hair and sharp eyes. "Show them." Susan activated a small device on her wrist. A large hologram appeared above the chamber floor. It showed images of destruction, burning buildings, bodies in the streets, a small child's doll covered in ash. Several council members turned away from the images. Others watched with multiple eyes wide in shock. "This was not a military action," William continued. "This was a massacre, and we will respond." Sorax leaned forward. "Ambassador, what exactly do you intend to do?" William pressed a button, and the terrible images were replaced by something new. A fleet of ships, not many by galactic standards, perhaps 50 vessels of various sizes. But their design was unusual, sleek and angular where most council races built rounded ships. "This is the Earth Defense Fleet," William explained. "It will launch in 72 hours. According to council law, we are required to inform you of military action. We are not required to get permission." The chamber erupted in voices. Some shouted in anger. Others pleaded for calm. The Dreth representative let out a roar that silenced the room. "You primitives," Grathvek hissed. "Your ships will be space dust within hours. The Dreth Empire has thousands of warships." William didn't flinch. "Perhaps. But know this, we have contacted every family who lost someone at Proxima Centauri. We have promised them justice. Humans keep their promises." Susan stepped forward with a digital tablet. "We've submitted all required documentation for our declaration. Our ships will avoid neutral territories. We will follow council rules of engagement." The council leader looked troubled. "Ambassador Pearson, I implore you to reconsider. The Dreth Empire is powerful. Your species is young. This could mean the end of humanity." William squared his shoulders. "The day humans stand by while our children are killed is the day humanity has already ended." He nodded to Susan, and they turned to leave. As they walked toward the exit, the chamber filled with urgent conversations. Some representatives rushed to contact their governments. Others hurried to speak with the human delegation. The Dreth representative's voice cut through the noise. "You have signed your species' death warrant, human." William paused at the door, but didn't turn around. "We'll see you in 3 days," he said quietly, and then walked out of the chamber. Behind him, The Galactic Council faced a situation they hadn't seen in centuries. War was coming. General Catherine Walsh stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant. The ship was Earth's largest battlecruiser. Through the wide view screen, she watched as engineers in spacesuits worked on the hull of a nearby vessel. Earth's orbital shipyards were busy day and night now. 3 days isn't much time, said Captain Peter Grant, walking up beside her. He was a broad-shouldered man with a clean-shaven head and dark skin. Catherine nodded. It's enough. We've been preparing for this possibility since the first colony was established. She turned to look at the bridge crew. Men and women moved with purpose between stations. Some looked nervous, but all were focused on their tasks. On a large screen at the front of the bridge, a countdown timer showed 58 hours until launch. Lieutenant Russell, report on the shield modifications, Catherine called. Daniel Russell looked up from his console. He was young with sandy hair and quick hands that never seemed to stop moving. Almost complete, General. The new phase-shifting technology should give us an edge against Dreth weapons. Will it make us invincible? Catherine asked. Daniel shook his head. No, ma'am. But it might keep us alive long enough to hit back. Catherine walked to the tactical station where maps showed Dreth territory. The Empire was huge compared to Earth's handful of colonies. Their fleet outnumbered humanity's by 20 to 1. We're outgunned, Captain Grant said quietly. Yes, Catherine agreed, but they don't know what we're capable of. She pressed a button on the console, and the display changed to show the secret weapon Earth had developed. It wasn't a bigger gun or a stronger shield. It was something the aliens hadn't considered. The quantum displacement bombs are ready, she asked. Yes, General, answered Chief Engineer Olivia Mason from across the bridge. All 30 ships will be equipped within 24 hours. Catherine nodded with satisfaction. Good. Meanwhile, in Geneva, Earth Central Government Headquarters bustled with activity. Ambassador William Pearson walked quickly down a hallway lined with offices. Susan Mitchell struggled to keep up with his long strides. The Talaxians are asking for another meeting, Susan said, checking her tablet. The Volderan ambassador is waiting in your office. And the Dreth. The Dreth can wait, William interrupted. He stopped outside a door marked Strategic Communications. What about our separate conversations with council members? Going well, Susan replied. Patricia's team has spoken with 27 species so far. Most promise neutrality. Any offers of help? Susan shook her head. Not officially. But the Arcturian representative hinted they might share some intelligence on Dreth defensive positions. William pushed open the door. Inside, a dozen communication specialists worked at their stations. Large screens showed news broadcasts from across the galaxy. One screen showed scenes from Proxima Centauri, the burned colony. People need to see this, William said, pointing to the images. Make sure every species in the Confederacy knows what the Dreth did and why we're fighting. Patricia Gonzalez approached them. She was the lead negotiator, a woman with intense eyes and quick thoughts. The Dreth are trying to spin this as human aggression. They're claiming the colony was a military outpost. William clenched his jaw. Show the galaxy the school that was destroyed. Show them the families. Patricia nodded. We are, and it's working. Public opinion on many worlds is shifting toward us. It won't stop the Dreth fleet, Susan pointed out. No, William agreed, but it might stop others from joining them. As they spoke, a message alert sounded. Patricia looked at her device and her eyes widened. Intelligence report, she said. The Dreth are mobilizing their main battle fleet. They're not waiting for our attack. They're heading toward Earth. William's face hardened. How long until they arrive? 4 days, maybe 5. William pulled out his own communication device. I need to speak to General Walsh immediately. We need to launch early. As he walked away to make the call, Susan looked at Patricia with worry in her eyes. Can we really win this? Patricia watched the screens showing the devastation on Proxima Centauri. We have to, she said simply. For them. In space, the human fleet prepared for battle. Against all odds, they would fight. And they would fight in a way the galaxy had never seen before. Captain Alan Howard sat in the command chair of the UES Swift Arrow. 5 other small ships flew in formation with his. From the outside, they looked like ordinary cargo vessels. That was the point. "Status report," Alan said, his voice calm despite the tension in his chest. "All systems normal, Captain," replied Navigation Officer Maria Kent. "We're approaching Rigel system. ETA 12 minutes. Alan nodded. The Rigel system was home to the Dreth's largest shipyard. It was their first target. "Any sign they've detected us?" he asked. Communications Officer John Phillips checked his screens. "No, sir. Their scanners show us as merchant vessels, just as planned." The bridge was quiet. Everyone knew what was at stake. If they failed, Earth would have no chance against the full might of the Dreth fleet. "Weapons status?" Alan asked. "Quantum displacement bombs ready," Weapons Officer Grace Peterson responded. Her fingers hovered over her console. "Targeting systems locked on the shipyard." Alan looked at the main view screen. The massive Dreth shipyard came into view. It was enormous, a sprawling structure of metal and energy fields. Dozens of warships were under construction. If completed, those ships would attack Earth. "Open a channel to all ships," Alan ordered. John pressed some buttons. "Channel open, sir." Alan took a deep breath. "This is Captain Howard. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. And remember, no casualties. That's a direct order." He paused, then added, "For Earth." "For Earth," the bridge crew echoed. "Begin Phase 1, Alan commanded. Maria adjusted their course. The 6 human ships spread out, approaching different sections of the shipyard. On the Dreth security sensors, they still appeared as harmless cargo vessels making routine deliveries. "We're being hailed," John reported. "Dreth Control wants our clearance codes." Alan nodded. "Send the codes we acquired." For several tense seconds, everyone waited. Then John smiled. "They've accepted our codes. We have clearance to approach." The ships moved closer to the shipyard. They were now close enough to see individual Dreth workers moving about. "Initiate evacuation protocol," Alan ordered. Grace activated a special transmitter. It sent a signal that triggered alarms throughout the shipyard, alarms that warned of a dangerous radiation leak. It wasn't real, but the Dreth wouldn't know that. On the view screen, they watched as Dreth workers began evacuating, boarding emergency shuttles. "Evacuation at 60%, Grace reported, monitoring the life signs. 70%, 85. Alan waited patiently. This was the most important part of their plan. "Evacuation complete, sir," Grace finally reported. "No Dreth life signs remaining in the target zones." Alan nodded. "Deploy the weapons." From each human ship, a small missile launched. They weren't designed to explode. They carried something much more sophisticated. The missiles hit their targets across the shipyard. There was no fire, no explosion. Instead, a strange ripple effect spread through the massive structure. Parts of it seemed to flicker, becoming transparent and then solid again. "Quantum displacement successful," Grace announced. "The shipyard facilities are 90% out of phase with normal spacetime." On the screen, the shipyard appeared to be there, but not quite there, like a ghost of itself. The Dreth ships under construction were frozen in a state between existence and non-existence. "It worked," Maria whispered. Alan allowed himself a small smile. "Send the confirmation to Earth Command. Then let's get out of here." As the human ships turned and accelerated away, alarms began blaring from the communication station. "Dreth warships incoming," John shouted. 3 heavy cruisers just jumped into the system. "They're too late," Alan said calmly. "Engage stealth mode and set course for the rendezvous point." The 6 human ships shimmered and then seemed to fade from view as their stealth systems activated. By the time the Dreth warships reached the shipyard, the humans were gone. Back on the Dreth homeworld, Supreme Commander Kraz Full received the news with rage. His largest shipyard was useless. Hundreds of ships were trapped in quantum limbo. Yet not a single Dreth had been harmed. The humans had struck the first blow in a way no one expected. The war had begun. 2 weeks had passed since the first human strike. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from all member species had gathered for this emergency session. Elizabeth Carter sat quietly at the human delegation's table. She was a diplomatic attaché with sharp green eyes and brown hair pulled back in a neat bun. Around her, aliens of every shape and size whispered among themselves. Council leader Xorax called for order, his forearms raised high. This emergency session will now begin. The topic is the ongoing conflict between humans and the Dreth Empire. A large screen activated, showing footage from the most recent human strikes. 12 more attacks had followed the first. Each one precisely targeted Dreth military facilities. Each one had avoided casualties. The Kilarian representative, a floating gas-filled being contained in a transparent suit, spoke first. "We have never seen warfare conducted this way. The humans disable rather than destroy." The Dreth representative, Grafvek, slammed his clawed hand on the table. "This is still an act of war. They have crippled our defensive capabilities." Elizabeth remained calm as all eyes turned to her. Council leader Xorax nodded for her to speak. "The Dreth attacked our colony and killed 8,000 civilians," she said, her voice steady. "We are responding to protect ourselves, but we choose how we fight." The Valeran ambassador, a methane-breathing creature in an environment suit, leaned forward. "Your approach confuses us. You declare war, yet you refuse to kill. You strike military targets but evacuate enemy personnel. What is your purpose?" Elizabeth stood. She was much smaller than most of the aliens, but her presence filled the room. "Humanity has a long history of warfare on our homeworld," she explained. "For thousands of years, we fought each other. We became very good at killing. Too good." She touched a control, and the screen changed to show images from Earth's past wars. Soldiers in trenches, cities reduced to rubble, mushroom clouds rising over devastated landscapes. Many council members shifted uncomfortably at the images. "We learned, through tremendous suffering, that destruction rarely brings lasting peace," Elizabeth continued. "We don't seek to destroy the Dreth. We seek to stop their aggression." Grafvek hissed. "Pretty words to hide your weakness. You cannot destroy us, so you pretend mercy is your goal." Elizabeth turned to face him directly. "We could have targeted your civilian populations. We could have used weapons that would have killed millions. We chose not to." A murmur ran through the chamber. "The humans speak truth," said a voice from the back. An elder Galaxian rose, his translucent blue skin glowing softly. "Our intelligence confirms they have weapons capabilities beyond what they have used." Council leader Xorax looked troubled. "What do you humans want from this council?" "Nothing," Elizabeth replied. "We inform you of our actions as required by council law. We follow the rules of engagement. Beyond that, this is between humans and the Dreth." Grafvek stood suddenly, knocking his chair backward. "This council has always been weak. The Dreth will handle the humans ourselves." He stormed out of the chamber, his scales dark with rage. After he left, 6 different council representatives approached Elizabeth, asking for private meetings. "What's happening?" asked Susan Mitchell, who sat beside Elizabeth. "They're curious," Elizabeth said quietly. "They've never seen a species fight a war this way before." As they gathered their materials to leave, the Arcturian representative, an elderly being with crystalline features, stopped beside them. "Your approach is unexpected," he said in a whispery voice, "but perhaps needed. The Dreth have bullied smaller worlds for centuries while this council did nothing." Elizabeth nodded respectfully. "Sometimes the galaxy needs someone willing to stand up to a bully. But stand up without becoming one themselves," the Arcturian added. We will watch with great interest. As the human delegation left the chamber, something had clearly shifted in galactic politics. The war was changing more than just the relationship between humans and the Dreth. The alarm sounded throughout the colony on Ta City. Red lights flashed in every building. Colony Governor Frank Nelson stood in the control center, his face grim as he looked at the monitors. Dreth warships entering the system, reported Security Chief Lauren Young. 30 vessels, mostly heavy cruisers and destroyers. Frank nodded. He was a stocky man with graying hair and steady hands that never seemed to shake, even now. Begin evacuation to the shelters. How long until they reach us? 2 hours, sir. Frank pressed a button on the main console. This is Governor Nelson. All civilians proceed to underground shelters immediately. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. All across the colony, people began moving quickly but calmly. Parents gathered children. Medical staff helped the elderly and sick. The people of Ta City had prepared for this day. Lauren looked concerned. Sir, our defenses aren't designed to stop a fleet that size. We have only 3 patrol ships. Frank's mouth formed a small smile. We have more than they know. He entered a code into his console. Beneath the colony and in hidden locations around the planet's orbit, systems began to wake up. Activate the grid, Frank ordered. In space, the Dreth fleet approached the human colony. Supreme Commander Kraz Full himself led this attack from his flagship, the Eternal Dominance. He was a massive Dreth, with obsidian scales and yellow eyes that burned with hatred. The colony is in sight, reported his tactical officer. We detect minimal defenses. Their patrol ships are retreating. Kraz Full bared his sharp teeth in what passed for a smile among his kind. Begin the attack. Show these humans what real warfare looks like. The Dreth ships moved into attack formation, their weapons powered up, glowing with deadly energy. The first shots fired toward the colony. But something strange happened. The energy beams seemed to bend away from their targets. Some disappeared entirely. Others hit buildings but caused only minor damage. What is happening? Kraz Full roared. Suddenly, small objects appeared all around the Dreth fleet. They weren't ships, they were satellites, hidden until now by advanced cloaking technology. Sir, they're emitting some kind of interference field, cried the tactical officer. Our targeting systems are failing. Kraz Full slammed his fist on his command chair. Switch to manual targeting. The Dreth gunners tried, but each time they fired, the mysterious grid of satellites redirected or absorbed their weapons' energy. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Dreth fired endlessly, hitting some targets but never anything vital. Meanwhile, the small human patrol ships darted between the larger Dreth vessels, firing precision shots that disabled engines and weapon systems. By the end, 27 Dreth ships floated helplessly in space, unable to move or fight. Not destroyed, just disabled. In the colony below, people emerged from the shelters. There had been some damage. 43 colonists had died when one building took a direct hit before the defense grid was fully active. But the colony stood. Admiral Lisa Wright arrived with the human rapid response fleet just as the battle ended. Her ships surrounded the disabled Dreth vessels. She opened a communication channel to Kraz Full's flagship. This is Admiral Wright of Earth Fleet, she said, her face appearing on the Dreth commander's screen. She was a woman in her 50s with short silver hair and stern features. Your ships are disabled. Your weapons are offline. Kraz Full hissed with rage. Finish it then. Destroy us if you dare. Lisa shook her head. That's not our way. Your crews will be treated according to humanitarian protocols. When this conflict ends, they will return home. She pressed a button, and her next words were broadcast not just to Kraz Full, but to the entire Dreth Empire and the Galactic Council. This recording is being transmitted to your leadership and the Council simultaneously. Let them see how humans wage war. Kraz Full could only stare in confused anger. In all his years of combat, he had never faced an enemy who had him defeated but refused to destroy him. Throughout the galaxy, beings of all species watched the footage from Ta City. The humans had defended themselves without slaughter. It was warfare unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. 1 month after the war began, a message arrived at Earth's central government. The Dreth Empire wanted to talk. Ambassador William Pearson read the message twice. He sat in his office in Geneva, the morning sun streaming through tall windows. Susan Mitchell stood nearby, waiting. "They're asking for peace talks," William said, looking up. "The Dreth want to meet on Arcturus Station." Susan's eyes widened. "Is it a trap?" William shook his head. The message came through official council channels. Orcs will serve as mediator. "Should we trust them?" Susan asked. William stood and walked to the window. "We don't need to trust them. We just need to talk to them." 3 days later, the human delegation arrived at Arcturus Station. It was a massive structure floating in neutral space, built by the Arcturians centuries ago. The station had hosted many important meetings throughout galactic history. William led the human team into the circular negotiation chamber. Patricia Gonzalez walked beside him, carrying data tablets. Behind them came military advisors and legal experts. On the other side of the room, the Dreth delegation entered. Supreme Commander Kraz Full himself led them, his obsidian scales gleaming under the soft lights. His yellow eyes found William immediately. Council leader Thorax stood at the head of the circular table. "This meeting between the Earth Federation and the Dreth Empire will now begin. I will serve as neutral mediator." Everyone took their seats. The air felt thick with tension. "1 month ago, you declared war on us," Krasful began, his voice a low growl. "Now we will discuss terms for your surrender." William remained calm. "We did not come to surrender, Commander. We came to negotiate peace." Krasful's eyes narrowed. "Your warfare is incomprehensible. Why not simply destroy us if you have the capability?" William leaned forward. "Because then we'd have to destroy all of you, and then your allies would seek revenge. The cycle would continue." He paused. "Earth's history is filled with such cycles. We chose a different path." The negotiations were difficult. They lasted 17 days. Sometimes voices were raised. Sometimes threats were made. But slowly, progress happened. On the 8th day, Patricia presented maps showing the disputed territories. "We claim only what was registered with the Council," she said, highlighting 3 star systems. "Nothing more." The Dreth military advisor hissed. "Those systems have valuable resources." Patricia nodded, "which we're willing to share through fair trade agreements." This surprised the Dreth. In their culture, winners took everything. On the 12th day, William presented the terms for reparations for the Proxima Centauri attack. "We don't seek to bankrupt your empire," he explained. "We ask only for enough to rebuild what was destroyed and compensate the families who lost loved ones." Krasful studied the humans carefully. "You could demand much more." During a break on the 15th day, the Salaxian mediator spoke privately to Patricia. "Your demands are minimal," the alien observed, his blue skin pulsing gently. "You could ask for entire systems, technology transfers, military concessions." Patricia smiled sadly. "Victory isn't measured in territory or resources, but in how quickly you can transform enemies into neighbors." The Salaxian considered this. A strange concept, but perhaps a wise one. Finally, on the 17th day, both sides reached agreement. The Dreth would recognize human colonial territories. They would pay reasonable reparations for Proxima Centauri. They would withdraw from 3 disputed systems, which would become neutral trade zones. As Krasful signed the document, he looked at William with newfound respect. "You fight differently than any species we've encountered," he said. "It is educational." William nodded. "Perhaps next time, we can skip the fighting part and start with talking." As news of the peace agreement spread across the galaxy, Many council species were surprised. The humans had won their war without destruction. They had secured their goals without demanding humiliation from their enemy. It was a new kind of victory, and it would change galactic politics forever. 6 months after the war began, the Galactic Confederacy gathered for its centennial assembly. The Grand Chamber was more crowded than ever before. Every member species had sent representatives. Even species that normally showed little interest in galactic politics had come. The main item on the agenda: ratifying the Human-Dreth Peace Accords and considering humanity's proposal for new security protocols. General Catherine Walsh stood beside Ambassador William Pearson at the Earth delegation's table. She wore her formal military uniform with its simple decorations. This would be her last official duty before retirement. "Nervous?" William asked quietly. Catherine shook her head. "Just ready for the next chapter." To everyone's surprise, the Dreth Empire had sent a full delegation. They sat across the chamber, led not by Supreme Commander Kraz Full, but by a new leader, High Counselor Mrekvar, a younger Dreth known for her progressive ideas. The Dreth had implemented government reforms in the months since the peace accords, partially influenced by human constitutional models shared during the negotiations. Council leader Thorax called the session to order. "Today we consider a historic document. The Human-Dreth Peace Accords represent more than just an end to conflict between two species. They represent a new approach to resolving disputes." The chamber was silent as Thorax continued. "Following this, we will consider the human proposal for the proportional response doctrine. This would formalize rules of engagement for conflicts that might arise in the future." The voting process was solemn. Each species representative approached the central podium, stated their vote, and touched the ancient crystal that recorded their decision. One by one, they voted. Even species that had been neutral or even hostile toward humans supported the accords. When it was the Dreth turn, High Counselor Mrekvar stood tall. "The Dreth Empire votes to ratify the accords." A murmur ran through the chamber. No one had been certain how the Dreth would vote. The final tally was unanimous, the first time in Confederacy history that every member had agreed on a significant issue. Next came the vote on the proportional response doctrine. This was humanity's proposal that would change how conflicts were handled throughout the galaxy. It established clear rules. Responses must be proportional to provocations. Civilian populations must be protected. Conflicts must seek minimal damage to achieve peaceful resolution. Again, the vote was unanimous. As the session concluded, the Valoran speaker addressed the assembly. "For millennia, this confederacy has avoided war by avoiding conflict altogether. Often, we allowed injustices to continue rather than risk confrontation. Humans have shown us a middle path, that confrontation can be decisive without being destructive." After the formal proceedings, delegations mingled in the Great Hall adjacent to the chamber. For the first time, human and Dreth representatives spoke as equals, even as potential friends. Catherine and William stood near a window overlooking the stars. Catherine watched as a human diplomat laughed at something a Dreth said. "Do you think it will last?" William asked, nodding toward the unlikely pair. Catherine considered the question. "Nothing lasts forever, but I think we fought a few centuries of peace. Not bad for our first galactic conflict." In the center of the hall, a new star map displayed the recently established Joint Human-Dreth Scientific Outpost. It had been built in what was previously contested space. Its official name combined words from both languages, roughly meaning unexpected understanding. Susan Mitchell approached them, looking excited. 5 more species have asked for human advisors to help with their security forces. They want to learn our approach." William smiled. "And so it begins." "What begins?" Catherine asked. "The real reason we went to war," William replied. "Not just to defend ourselves, but to show the galaxy a better way to handle conflict." Catherine nodded slowly. "From the most warlike species on our planet to teachers of peace among the stars. Quite a journey." The war that had stunned the Galactic Council had changed the course of Confederate history, not through destruction, but through a uniquely human approach to conflict that even their former enemies were beginning to appreciate and adopt. As darkness fell and the stars brightened outside the windows, humanity had found its place among them at last.